All right. Matt, let's just jump in because man, just like what we were talking about, I mean, I'll honestly, like, this has been one of the most challenging years of my life. And it also feels like it's the fastest year of my life. And maybe it was just this fast last year, but it just because I'm in it now and I'm not thinking about the past, but things feel so fast. It almost feels not out of control, but it's accelerating in everything we do. And I don't know if it's just heightened senses. I don't know if it's just all the noise on social, just the short snippet type of snacking culture that we all live in these days. But it just really feels like things are going so fast. And as we were talking, that sometimes it's easier to, okay, I want to make these changes. I don't know what to change, but I know what I want to let go of. And it's just like one of the things that we were talking about. And, you know, what decisions do we need to make heading into the new year? And you were talking about, well, I know a few things we need to leave behind. And I think that might be a good place for us to jump in, but I'm excited to have you back on, Matt. And
good to be with you, John. Love this
today. Yeah.
You bet.
So where do we start?
Well, you know, it's such an interesting thing. It's funny how humans, sometimes we may not know what we need for next year, but we know what we didn't need this year. So it really, in a way, it's kind of a deductive reasoning approach. Maybe we ought to be taking is what are some things I kind of look at it like if you're moving into a new home, you don't want to move all your old crud into the new home.
Right.
So there's some stuff we're just going to have to leave. And again, humans are really wired kind of evolutionarily. We're wired to be able to identify the negative way more effectively than seeing the positive, because the negative could kill us, right? So we have to always kind of mitigate the harms more than we have to enjoy the roses. But the dilemma with it is if you want to create a new year, a great new year, then let's go sift through some of that stuff that we've been through this year. And then let's identify what are the things we can leave, what can we learn, and what could we turn, 2026 into? So let's maybe just run through a few things. One thing that I know I need to leave, and I think it'd be really powerful if everybody could kind of think through their own little and sift through their own little junk drawer of life. What are the thoughts that didn't serve you this year? There's just certain thoughts, and you tell me, what are the thoughts that a lot of the agents are having? Like the rates. It's all about the rates. It's about inventory. We're running out of inventory. But what thoughts didn't serve this year?
Yeah. That's a great question. And as you and I were kind of talking, I mean, the divide of the haves and have-nots seems to be getting wider and wider and wider. And you've got, for me, the team leads who my wheelhouse, right? They're kind of caught in the swamp, if you will. They're doing 1 to 3 million. They're doing 1 to 3 million in top line revenue, but they're also still a massive amount of the production of that 1 to 3 million is on their back. And they've created this chasm of they know they want to escape production, but they need the other revenue streams, or they need their agents to perform. Yeah. And so I think they have a lot of thoughts. They have a lot of beliefs that my team can't perform. I need to go get more. It's almost just a state of overwhelm, Matt. Yeah. And I think the thought is it's just too much and I just need to put my head down and go to work. And instead of just, stepping back and really facing what it is that, is in front of them.
Yeah. In fact, that's, if you think about it too, it might be, you might also be, sometimes you get stuck in not knowing what the change is, right? There's a great quote by Albert Einstein that says, you cannot attempt to solve a problem you created at the same level of thinking you were at when you created it. Mm-hmm. Right? You have to transcend the thought, But the hard thing, and that's actually probably the ultimate goal right now, as I'd just be noticing that some of the year you're winding down, you've got 2 or 3 more weeks left in order to kind of wrap up the year. But what are the thoughts that have been catching you? Like, one of the ideas that may have been getting a lot of you is the thought that I'm just going to go it alone. I'm just going to do it myself. And that might be a thought that honestly is going to get you bit, because maybe it's the time of all times you need to circle the wagons, or you need to become a member of the team. So, I mean, other thoughts that are just super basic, or I'm not good at this. I'm not good enough to handle this downturn, right? I'm not, I'll never be successful at this. Or, I mean, I just want what we used to have. I want the old market. So if you get stuck and stay in that, I always tell the story about how one time I lost my sunglasses that were right on top of my head, but I looked for them for an hour. And in fact, I had my entire family looking for my sunglasses for 1 hour. And my family are so blind that they couldn't see them right on my head. And then I finally found them when I bent down in my closet looking on the floor, and they fell off my head. And I'm like, got them, found them. And then my wife said, let me see them. I want to see what we were looking for. And then I had to hide them because I didn't want her to know what an idiot I am. So what's the thought? And this is such an important thing, but what's the thought that has been haunting you this year? And honestly, you can go big scope, right? Like, what's my thought of my systems and my structures or my organization? But I also get down to some of the personal thoughts, because a lot of us have very personal kind of imposter syndrome thoughts that are killing us. And if you could shake them out a little bit and figure out where they are, generally the thought that you most want to seek out is the one that you're too embarrassed to talk about. What is the deep underlying thing that you've been hiding your whole life? Like the thing you've been compensating to overcome that idea? Because I might say maybe it's time we leave in 2025 that belief that we can't do this. Another reason why that's important, for example, I have a lot of clients that have rabid ADHD. They just have ADHD, and I don't care what it is, but I've seen some of the most successful humans I know have ADHD. But they also they learned about their ADHD and the impact it was having on their life when they were 10. So they built a script around it that they're broken, or they don't do that. I don't do that, or I don't think that way. And then that script stays with us for a really long time. And a lot of us have scripts that we just we're not dealing with. Now, why it matters deeply is because whatever the thought is, if we don't get rid of the thought, then it's going to lead to the second thing we want to maybe leave, which are the unhealthy feelings that we have. What are the unhealthy feelings we have toward our business? What do we have? What are the unhealthy feelings we have toward our day-to-day activities, toward our phone calls that we have to make? Do you have an inherent dread of a feeling that you feel every time before you pick up the phone? Or when you get a call, do you have irritation? What's the feeling? Because the feelings are a really important cue. They're a really important tell, right?
Yeah. And I mean, most people are not equipped enough to, push through those feelings. So that comes across in their tonality, their body language, their energy. And it's more of a detractor instead of an attractor into their business. And so they repel a lot of the things. It's almost, like Eeyore and the black cloud everywhere you go.
Yeah, that's such a good point. And Richard Rohr, who's a Catholic priest, has this most amazing quote that says, whatever pain you don't transform, you will eventually transmit to others. Right? So whatever pain you don't transform about yourself, about your business, about your team, about your inventory, about the rates, whatever of those things that are impacting your business that you don't transform into something else, a motivator, something that instigates you, that gets you to be driven. If you don't transform it, then you're going to eventually transmit it. And then every time I get interrupted by another call, and now I'm angry. And then I'm answering the call with just a tone of anger, which is enough to just push people away. right?
Yeah.
So there's something inside. There's another great quote that's kind of a Buddhist thought that says, getting struck by one arrow is bad. But the quote says, getting struck by a second is even worse. And so the basic premise of that is getting hit by an issue, that's bad. Like an interruption, a client that at the last second backs out and doesn't want anything. But then getting hit by the second arrow is even worse. And the second arrow is usually the emotion or the feeling that follows the event, right? And so start to identify what are the feelings you seem to have consistently. A lot of times when you dig deep on the feelings, like exhaustion, irritation, annoyance, embarrassment, fear, insecurity, whatever feeling you have a lot in your business, you can pretty much track that back upstream to the thought that's projecting it. And generally from the thought you haven't left, you're going to have feelings you haven't left. A lot of us too, by the way, carry regret. Oh, I wish I had just sold that one thing to that one guy that one time. If I had just done that, I would have had this other lead. We need to let go of the regrets. And we also, because a lot of us have been bit in business over the last few years and really hurt, we need to probably leave some resentment, because you don't want to carry into the 2026 all your resentment from what didn't go right for you this year. Yeah. It might be a really effective activity to go sit down and actually write down some of the things you feel, some of the regret you've had, some of the resentment you've had, and try to transform it. Like go create some little ceremony where you're going to leave the junk. And by the way, I am a big believer in writing it out. And again, nobody needs to read it, but I would write every feeling you've had about 2026. It was like positive and negative, but make sure you get the negative in there. And I hated this and I hated that. And I'm so glad that I moved away from that thing. And now I'm doing this. Get it all out of you. And then go do something ceremonial with that document. Go burn it. I had a guy go shoot it. He put it on a like a block of a cinder block, and he just blew the crud out of it with a gun. And he just disintegrated his negative thoughts. But the power of that is if you can let the regret go, then you can actually create motivation for the future, right? If you let the regret grow or the resentment go, then now we're free and clear next year to take off.
I love that exercise. What are some other things to kind of on the rejuvenation side of things, right? Like we hear this, we hear the exercise, we hear those things. There's I don't know if it was the newest James Bond, one of the newer ones, but where they show up in Italian City or wherever, and there's like things that are like fire falling from the sky, and it was the exact same thing, right? They're writing the things that they want to let go of, and then they would set it on fire.
Set it on fire and burn it.
So that exercise. What other things are helpful to kind of rejuvenate, those feelings that aren't serving us in a positive way?
Yeah. Well, now so if you think about it, it's kind of two things. It's because you kind of have to let go in order to grab 2026. You're going to have to let go of 2025. And so, so it's the ability to let go of stuff, right? Is part of the healthy pattern. But then the other half of the healthy pattern is going to grab what you want. So one of the great motivators is actually vision. Like seriously getting really clear about your values. So a great way to look at a value, for example, is a value isn't necessarily, it's something you appreciate, it's something you care about, but what you might want to look at is what is it that you actually value? Because values also tell us how to do the work. Like values are generally kind of verbs that tell us how it's going to be done. Like I value work. I value lifting others. I value exercising integrity. So it's kind of the verb or the adverb sometimes to your life, and knowing what your values are makes a huge difference. Like and a great way to figure out what your values are is to start to figure out what do you want on your 90th birthday the people that you've served as an agent or a team leader, what do you want them to say about you? What do you want your kids to say about you on your 90th birthday? What do you want your friends to say about you on your 90th birthday? And go write a tribute about what everything you want them to say, not what they would say if you died today, but what you would want them to say ideally about you someday, and go identify from those values, because those values end up starting to carry their own energy, their own life force. And then if we know what our values are, then I'm not just going to go on autopilot for 2026. And by the way, I'm not even going to just go on my goals. Goals are great, but the goal still needs to have the how. And the how is going to be based on your values. So one really powerful thing that motivates us and drives us is not just knowing what our goals are for 2026, but knowing how we're going to do it. And I'm going to do it with integrity. I'm going to do it with fun. I'm going to do it with sincerity. I'm going to do it with attention to detail. Whatever it is you value, go start to identify what those are. And then one more thing, John, and I know I've talked about it with you before and with your groups before, is this idea of knowing what your character strengths are. Yeah. Each of us is uniquely qualified and gifted in a lot of powerful strength of character. And but the problem is most of us don't even know what our strengths are. And if you don't know what your strengths are, then you don't even know how to approach our life like individually, but you also don't get the benefit of just being able to grow your own self-worth, your own self-esteem. And one of the great places to go to figure out your strengths is you go to a website called authentichappiness.org, which will take you to the University of Pennsylvania. And then when you're there, go to the questionnaires tab. And if you do this, you can do this for free, and go look up the VIA Character Strengths Assessment. VIA Character Strengths Assessment. Take it. It'll take you about 35 minutes. And when you're done, you'll know from number 1 to number 24, all of your character strengths in order. And for example, like my number 1 character strength is social intelligence. I read people really well. My second strength is spirituality and purpose. I just have an ability to connect to higher purpose. My third strength is perspective and wisdom. My fourth strength is creativity. My fifth strength is love of learning. My sixth strength is fun, playfulness, and humor, right? And so now I know the minute I walk into a situation, I know what I'm going to lean back on. I'm going to lean back on my character strengths and my values. And then I'm going to take those going into the new year and put those in my hands instead of everything that I'm having to let go this year.
Yeah, it's so good. I was looking at mine: capacity to love and be loved, hope, optimism, and future-mindedness, gratitude, zest, enthusiasm, and energy, and then perspective, wisdom.
Yeah. See, by the way, John, that's you. Like when we talk about you taking on this crazy world right now and just the unsettled nature of real estate, you have so much hope.
Yeah.
Like for what you're going through and what people are going through, your hope and optimism is always leading. Mm-hmm. And so what's really cool about the research on the VIA character strengths is that you're not just good at these things. Like of your top 5 or 6, they're superpowers. And what's really cool, if you go look at your bottom 5 or so, those are kind of your kryptonite. Those are the ones that tip you over a little bit. And so what's like, for example, my lowest character strength is self-regulation. I don't regulate myself very well. Like I won't stay on time if I don't have my systems keeping me on time. Because I would rather just keep serving with social intelligence the people I'm serving, right? So I could spend the rest of my life trying to grow self-regulation, but what I actually use are just my top 6 or 7 strengths to get people around me that help me get that to happen. And so there's power in knowing what your strengths are. You know what else there is? There's happiness. The research is really clear that when you live the happiest people on earth know their strengths and live them 10 plus hours a week. So I don't look at myself as a coach. I don't look at myself as an author. I don't look at myself as a speaker. I look at myself as 6 or 7 character strengths that I use everywhere I go.
Yeah.
Those are just my gifts. So when I walk into a room, think about that. If one of you as an agent walks in and you're like dealing with somebody that's kind of, that's a little unsettling for you, you don't have to just get unsettled. You can wax in confidence, get strong based on the fact that you're world-class in your top strengths.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what you bring to 2026.
I love that. And I know what we've talked about, retake the assessment, because I don't know what the kryptonite is. I don't have the full list. So being able to go back and find that, just more so to avoid it. And like you said, put buffers in place, put guardrails in place to, complement you so that you're not, getting sucked down into that bottom part. So we've got certain thoughts that are not serving us. We've got certain feelings that are not serving us. What is the third thing that we need to just, hit the ejection button to?
Yeah. And if you think about it, if you think about your thoughts lead to the feelings, then the feelings, like you were saying, lead to action. We need action at some level, but the actions, a lot of us get stuck not in innovative new action. We get stuck in habits, right? And so the third thing we're going to work on that we want to leave are the unhealthy habits that don't serve us or that discourage us. I love the word discourage. Discourage comes from the root word courage, and courage comes from the French word cœur, which means heart. So when you're discouraged, you are without heart. You're without your core. And so are there certain habits that get in the way? Are there certain habits, for example, your phone, is it getting in the way? Do you have a habit? Like after about a year and a half ago, I got off of all politics because I was noticing I was watching too many political things. And I noticed it was skewing my thought. It was skewing my feeling, and it became a habit that would just get me dopamine. And every one of us have habits. Remember, our habits and dopamine, there's good dopamine and there's kind of cheap dopamine. And a lot of us lately, because of our phones, have become addicted to the cheap dopamine. Yeah. It's just like eating Cheetos all day. And the weirdest thing about it is you and I now, we can wake up in the morning and we can roll over and grab a phone and immediately start creating a dopamine hit in our body, right? Yeah. By the way, and I could never leave my house, but still get dopamine just by scrolling every time I push that screen up one more time. And in fact, it's even been created to create that dopamine effect. Now, my great-grandparents, they couldn't do that. If they wanted the heat on in their house, they had to go build a fire. If they wanted dopamine, they had to go get the cows in and milk them. So think of all the work that they had to get done in order to get milk. And once they got their milk, boom, now they get the dopamine. So that's real dopamine. And so some of our habits, and every one of us could probably go look at what are the habits that are just feeding us cheap dopamine. And by the way, it could be like there's a great study that came out after the bombing, the Boston Marathon bombing, that showed that if you were on the ground during the Boston Marathon bombing, and that when that bomb went off, you had a different level of PTSD than people that watched 5 or more hours of the coverage of the bombing. And what they found was the people that watched the coverage of the Boston Marathon bombing had a higher likelihood and incidence of PTSD than the people on the ground. Because the people on the ground could do something. They had to go do something, and everyone immediately acted. And they all acted within minutes, right? The action took place immediately. But when we now go watch 5 hours of coverage of something, we're not acting, we create trauma in ourselves, which I think is one reason why we have more and more people claiming traumatic pain, right? Traumatic problems. And so if you want to get rid of the trauma, then we got to change some habits. And if any habit keeps bringing you down, is feeding you cheap dopamine, is addictive and unhealthy, then it's probably time to leave some of those behind. And again, like there's no easy way, and everyone's got their own version of how to do this. But one of the greatest things, for example, I did one day, I had this overwhelming, I had way too much caffeine. And you know, when you just overdose on caffeine and your heart's just racing, it made me sick. Now, here's the key to breaking any habit. It's not enough to know you need to break the habit, because everyone listening right now has a habit they know they need to break. They all have something they need to stop doing. But we don't stop doing it until, and the research shows this is very clear, until you become so aware of it and you sit in it, and then you feel the pain of it while you're in it. Like, you have to be mindful about not knowing the habit you need to create, but mindfully knowing all of what's happening because of the habit. For example, there's a book called Unwinding Anxiety. And one of the things that they talk about in the book is the fact that a lot of anxiety is nothing more than a habit. It's just a habit with dopamine, by the way, a habit where we get addicted to the way we think, and the way we think continues to create anxiety. But one of the things that he talks about is to break a habit, you have to actually become very mindful about how the thing is creating feeling in you and how it's creating thought in you. So you have to become mindful of your thinking and your feeling, of how your mind works and your body. And for example, he says, when somebody's smoking, they know they shouldn't smoke, right? They just know that. But what he found helped the people that were trying to break the smoking addiction is he had them start to meditate and mindfully notice what they felt while they were smoking. And what they felt while they were smoking was, they usually said they felt alone because they were smoking outside at work all by themselves on a patio.
Yeah.
And they noticed that when they got in, they noticed that their breath smelled. And they noticed that their fingernails were turning yellow. And they didn't like how they felt having to hide their fingernails. And they noticed when they walked through, people would look at them weird, like, where were they? And they noticed that they noticed that they couldn't climb stairs like they used to.
Yeah.
But once they became mindful about that stuff, not just in passing, but in sitting in that, it starts to create the change in your mind that this isn't worth it. And what it literally does is it reprioritizes the habit lower in your like subconscious. It makes you subconsciously value it less. But when we don't evaluate a habit and we just kind of keep going with it, then we've never done any mindful deep dive on it. And most of us don't like to sit in our crap, right? We don't like to sit in this junk. So we never mindfully do anything about it, and which keeps us stuck in the habit. So start figuring out what's a habit that you like to change that's kind of perpetually creating issues for you, and then go take some time to sit in it. And I mean, again, you could be all formal and make a pro and con list, but I really would rather that you feel it.
Yeah.
Again, if you want to know what you want people to say about you on your 90th birthday, is it, man, do you remember how dad could lose hours watching mindless cable news about politics? None of us want to go down like that. We don't want to be remembered that way. But I want you to sit in it. And I don't need you to like turn it into like something that it's not. But if you don't want to be caught doing it, if it embarrasses you, then you've got to go deal with why it's embarrassing. So ask yourself, why? Why wouldn't I want to be caught watching cable news every night, all night? Well, because there's more to life. Why does it matter that there's more to life? And keep asking why, and go a little deeper with every step, and see what it'll teach you. Because a lot of times what it teaches you is Yeah, you know better. You know
Yeah.
better. And again, I really believe that whatever is able to watch our mind and see our mind, or whatever can see our feeling. Notice we've even talked about, you can notice your thinking and you can notice your feeling. So here's the coolest secret I've ever learned, maybe in my whole life, that if I can notice my feelings and I can notice my thinking, then that means I'm not my thinking or my feeling. That means I'm actually the observer of my thinking and my feeling. So I'm really that person. That's the real me. And once the real me starts looking at my thinking, my feelings, and my habits, then change can happen. Now you become what they call the observer, right?
Yeah.
You're not just the thinker, you're not just the feeler. Now you're the observer of the thinking and the feeling. There's power there. That's the real
I was about
you.
to say that's now power.
That's
right.
power. Yeah.
It's the whole, there's a little context to it, but the kind of power versus force, right? Trying to force that change, trying to force that thinking, trying to force
Yeah.
it. But when you're the observer,
Yeah.
you have that insight, that awareness, that knowledge. Now you sit, like you said, in power, because now you have a choice to do something about it.
Exactly. And see, by the way, all the choice lies in the observer, right? Otherwise, it's just a habitual thought, or it's a habitual pattern. And one of the things, this is such a powerful thing that I do with my clients, when they start to talk about what they're doing or not doing, their habits that are bad and how they're not succeeding and they're not where they want to be, I have them tell me, once you start getting into that part of your mind, what else do you think? And then I start writing down, well, I think I'm not good enough. I think I never should have gotten into this industry. I think that everyone else in the business is better than me. I think, and they start going down their list of all the things that their mind is saying to them. And you know what? Universally, once they're to the bottom of their list, if we go back to each one of the thoughts one by one, what we notice is none of them are aligned with their values. Which means your mind, when it's tipped upside down and not in its healthy state, is going to play against you, is going to play against the observer. It's now playing a game that's not even aligned to your values. So you need to start paying attention to your mind. That is one of the greatest tools I've ever learned in just human health and development, and really what we call emotional resiliency, is you don't have to just go with what your body feels, because the observer
body's probably trying to trick you, right?
That's right. The body's probably wanting a donut. The body's probably wanting a little break, right? But your mind, and you don't have to go with what your mind is thinking. You can notice your mind. An example I always use is for example, we think of this as my body, right? This is Matt. But if I lost my arm, what would my body do? My body would regenerate the capillaries and the venous supply around my shoulder. My body would heal the wound, and my body would maybe for a while continue to have phantom pains, thinking I still have an arm. That's what my body would do. What would my mind do? My mind would make up a big story, like, what a ripoff. This bites. Now I'm crippled. Now I'll never be, and it makes up a story. Yeah. Right? But neither of those are actually me, because I'm the one watching my mind and body do that. So once I can sit back to the observer, or to the real you, to the real self, then the real self can actually lean back, choose its values, and decide what to go do next with one arm and shoot the new arrow. So you reach back into the quiver, and if you know what your values are, then your values will inform you how to respond to this new dilemma. And then we go and do. And so when the economy hits, or whenever inventory's down, or you lose that job, or you lose that account, stop, take a deep breath, and just start noticing your body and how it's responding. Oh, my heart rate's going up. I'm starting to get anxious. I'm starting to panic. Name it, call it. Notice what your mind is doing. It's saying I'm a failure. I'll never succeed. Breathe and then just watch it. And here's the neatest thing I've ever learned. When you combine the feeling or the emotion of a moment, just the emotion that I just lost that deal, and then the thoughts that come with it, when you combine those two together, that has a name. That combined thing that is now created by my emotions of that moment and the thoughts around it is what we call, in my world, a feeling. Now we have a feeling, and feelings are what make thought permanent. So now we have a feeling about the economy. Now we have a feeling about our real estate. Now we have a feeling about our spouse. Now we have a feeling about our kids. It's not just an event anymore. And now we have a preference tied to that feeling. And then, by the way, every new report you get gets hung on that feeling, gets hung on the feeling. And we just keep hanging. They call it associating. We just keep associating every new thing to that feeling.
To that feeling.
And then that makes it so it's permanent. So if you want to get rid of the pain, pain doesn't have to be permanent suffering. But if you suffer a lot, then it's time to get rid of that. They call it diffusing. We have to diffuse our feeling, our thoughts, and our emotions, and just start to put them where they belong. And then reach back to our values and start to lead our life forward and choose to use our agency, our will, to act forward in the healthier way.
Yeah.
Power. That's emotional resiliency.
That's so good.
And
That's
a lot
so
of we
good.
think of it, we need it bad right now. Times are tough. We need resiliency.
I love it. I love it. So when we look at these things that are not serving us, and obviously talking through and finding ways to be aware and let go in the true motivators, we know the thoughts, we know the feelings, we know the habits, but really what drives this, right? We talked about it a little bit, but what really drives what it is that, kind of cascades these thoughts, these feelings?
Yeah. Part of it is, I always call it kind of just the natural man. It's just how your body is wired to work. See, your mind isn't wired to be your best friend. Your mind is wired to keep you surviving.
Right.
Right. And so it doesn't even, by the way, it doesn't even care if you're better than everyone else or if you're worse than everyone else. Because either way, better or worse, your mind still has power. So that's why some people naturally, all that is, if you think about it, is you're either going to become a fighter when you're vulnerable, or you're going to become a flighter. You're going to be a freezer, not knowing what to do, or you're going to be a pleaser, trying to please everybody.
Yeah.
And so every one of us by nature and by survival have kind of integrated either a lot of fight in us or a lot of flight. We're running and hiding, not doing anything, or a lot of freeze, not knowing what to do, being stuck, or a lot of please. Yes, sure, I'll do it, sure. And we're always overcompensating. Whichever one of those you choose are coming from your natural survival tendency. But if you really want to thrive in life, you're going to have to go higher than survival. You're going to have to dig deeper than your lowest, most base brain of the amygdala fight or flight brain. You're going to have to get into the prefrontal cortex and start really creating something different. But in order to do that, you're going to have to overcome that natural side of us. And the only way to overcome the natural side of us is, first of all, to start noticing it. Yeah, if you don't notice your mind and your body, then you are already in it. Right? So if you're too thick, have you ever heard the quote, you're in the thick of thin things? If you're really always in the thick of a lot of really thin things, then you're too probably much in your mind. But there's a point, in fact, some people call it deep work, that each of us should be spending some time. I think his name was Calvin Upton, I think. Was it Calvin? Who wrote Deep Work.
Yeah.
Great book about how to go, Cal Newport, I think. How to go deeper in our lives and start finding answers to the deeper questions and to the deeper things and understanding yourself. That's, to me, that's how you become your highest self. That's how you create that transcendence.
Got it. Yeah, it's not head in sand, right? Being able
Right.
to do the work, sit in it. I think too, coming from just what you and I do, I find it hard for most to go on that journey alone.
Yeah.
And
I think you're right.
there's got to be somebody there at least to just hold the mirror up
Yeah.
in front of you, to be
Yeah.
able to, at least help create that awareness, create to where
Exactly.
you can notice it. I think the people you have that are not enablers, but also kind of challenge you a
Yeah.
little bit. And is a little bit what you and I were kind of talking about before. I'm starting to see people that are thriving, especially in the real estate side of things, those that are collaborating at a higher level, right?
Yeah.
They've got either great people around them on their team. They've got great colleagues. They're in great masterminds. They've got a great tight inner circle, people that they can kind of connect with, to be able to, work through those things faster. And then also having somebody that will call you out on your stuff. And be like you said, man, that's a really good story you're telling yourself there.
Yeah. That's rich. You're doing great. That is, by the way, the key. That's why I don't know. Like, I always hear people say, I've got to be true to myself, which I think is great, but you can't create your highest, legacy in a vacuum. You need to have people around you. That's why I honestly believe that relationships are the great practice for excellence, because you have other people mirroring, like you said, other people that are highlighting and holding you accountable, other people that don't see it the way you see it. And so if you're trying to do this too much alone, or if you aren't, getting into the masterminds, or you're not getting into coaching, or you're not getting onto teams, if you're not getting some feedback loops, then you're probably just not getting the data that you're going to need for development and growth.
Yeah. So good. So good. Matt, I appreciate you jumping in here and like what we were talking about. Sometimes it's harder to, think what you want, but it's a lot easier to think what I need to let go of or what I don't want.
It's a great
And
place
so I think it is. I think for those that are struggling with what decisions to make heading into the new year, sometimes, the growth through subtraction is sometimes the easier path.
Yeah, for sure.
Good stuff, Matt. I appreciate you, and
thanks, brother.
Just fantastic. Got a page of notes as always, and
it's awesome.
And so, thanks so much.
Thank you. Good to be with you, bro.
You got it, bud. Awesome. Thanks,
care.
guys.
Bye-bye.
We'll see you next time. Bye.